All right, let's get started here today. We are Mastermind with Neil Schwartz and our very special guest, Keith Thompson. Let's give it a big hand. Welcome, Keith. Woo! Good job, good job. We're going to take the format today in a slightly different direction.
I had a feeling you were going to just go different because
we're just going to take we'll take the format in a similar direction, but I'm sharing with the audience that your background is in traditional real estate, although you come from a very traditional real estate family, which is interesting in itself. And you've got one of the questions I'm going to ask later is, how is it working with so much opinionated family?
That's funny.
I think everyone's got three different opinions, and it depends on which one needs to come up today that they'll talk about.
Yeah.
So I met Keith a couple of years ago, and he wasn't really in the traditional real estate business at the time. He was in a subsection of it. And Keith, you want to kind of talk a little bit about where you come from?
Yeah, absolutely. So previous to being in residential real estate and joining the family business, I was in student housing property management. I got into that back in, I want to say it was like 2010. My dad at the time was working with he had his business, and I had graduated college in 2008. I got my real estate license, and obviously in 2008 that was the best time to graduate college, as you can imagine. It was just a winning time, and I tried getting in the real estate space, and there were short sales happening left and right, REOs, and I didn't know what the heck any of it meant. Trying to learn it, and simultaneously I was working at a winery. And I was young in my life. I was newly out of college, trying to make a buck. And sorry, there's a fire truck driving by right now.
We can't hear it, so don't worry about it.
I actually found myself in kind of a unique situation where, it didn't appear that the real estate market at that time was a good fit for me, trying to learn everything and needing to make some cash because me and my wife were expecting a baby. But I also randomly, or kind of surprisingly, got laid off from my job at the winery. The market was changing. They had to make changes. And so it put me in a position where I had to go and find a job. And I wanted a big boy job. I wanted to get a job that I could make a career. And so I went to 3 or 4 apartments. My sister-in-law at the time, she said, hey, you should get into property management. They usually give you an apartment, commission, a salary. It's great. So I went and applied at a few of them. I walked into one that was being built, and literally the manager walked around the corner. She says, can I help you? I said, yeah, I'm looking for a job. Gave her my resume. And she literally said, we just fired 2 of our leasing specialists, and can you start tomorrow? And I said, yes, I can start tomorrow. So I got into the property management space that way. I became kind of one of their number 1 salespeople on the leasing floor, worked myself up to an assistant manager where I was collecting rent, which was really fun. Super, super fun. Delivering 3-day notices, and ended up working myself up to a manager position and just climbed the corporate ladder. I found myself, having an opportunity to move to Texas for a regional manager position. I took it. Worked for a merchant builder out there that was building these student housing properties and filling them up and then selling them. And they were making a killing. And so I traveled a lot with them. And at my last employer, found myself at a company called the Scion Group, which if you look them up, they're the largest student housing property management company in the nation. And I worked myself up to a VP role where I oversaw operations for a team of about 1,200. We had, regional managers, directors, oversaw about 90 properties nationally, 26 states. It was crazy. It was a great experience for me because I found myself always being in a room with people that were significantly smarter than I was. And so I was always challenged. Like there was never a time where I felt comfortable in my own skin because I was always looking at these people like, how the heck do you know that? Like, how did you do that? And so, I was naturally, I ask a lot of questions and try to figure things out. And it worked out really well to the point that I'm now at a stage in life where I've learned all those things kind of in a condensed time period, and now I get to utilize them here with the family business and work with my dad, my brother, and my mom, and Neil, you, and Robert, and this great team that we've put together. It's a blessing, and very happy with how things turned out.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, the property management side is a different animal, and some of the agents go down that road. I never did. Most of the agents I know really don't, not on a big way. And then when you think of student housing, I mean, I've rented student housing for our children before.
Yeah.
That's pretty disgusting. So
yeah.
But it sounds like yours was a little bit more corporate-y kind of done.
No, absolutely not. Student housing is student housing. I mean, at the end of the day, you squeeze 800 18 to 22-year-olds in a building with a rooftop pool and, all these amenities, and they're going to come up with some creative stuff. Like that's just going to happen. So, incident reports, unfortunately with being involved in a company that had so many, they call it beds there, not doors. Usually in property management for single family, you'd say I'm managing 200 doors. We were managing 55,000 beds. And so when you have 55,000 students that you're essentially managing, you guys could all imagine, there's some humorous incidents, and then there's some really devastating incidents where you're dealing with, students that are overdosing, or, they're suffering from depression. And so got to see the crazy, interesting, like wild story side of it, and also some pretty dark stuff, but it's all part of that management platform. I mean, that's when you're dealing with that many people, you're going to see some stuff.
Absolutely. So that's what one of the things that interests me about you is that you happen to be able to manage, ever since we talked a couple of years ago, manage a multitude of things, projects, people, etc., and nothing really shakes you very much. And certainly you don't share it outwardly too often. Is it that you're not very shakeable?
Well, you know what? I think that after being in that industry specifically for 12 years, you have no choice but to develop extremely thick skin, and you're dealt with a lot of situations. There was a lot of pressure, a lot of urgency. As when you get into that VP role at that level, you're managing a portfolio that's bringing in billions of dollars. And so this is real money. I mean, this is like crazy money, and a bad decision, a poor decision, you overlooking something can cost the company a lot. And so it was a high stress environment. Heck, I survived COVID in property management, where schools were shutting down, schools were sending kids home. And so I think I've just been through a lot to where what we're going through, while stressful, while challenging, I feel like, it could be worse. I know it can be worse. I've faced worse.
Got it. So we've come through basically the first 6 months of the transition of what we're trying to do with merger of the bigger company.
Yep.
Now we're adding some other great organizations to us. We're approaching 700 or 800 agents right now.
Yep, we have about another 60 that are coming on board this next week. Right now we're sitting at like 619.
Got it. Okay. So that's a lot of people to merge on, etc. Man, I'm not fighting the brush fires on the streets, but I talk to everybody all the time, and everything seems to be working and working at a high level. In fact, we had this on a mastermind call today. So, and I'd like you to talk to this. The systems have to be anticipated and building before you need them, rather than, oops, we need them now. Am I correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, for every agent that's on this call, I mean, I think it's more of something that you need to do from a business perspective in general, right? Which is each of you should be thinking to yourself, I'm managing my own business. You guys all own your own business, okay? And from a business standpoint, you want to be able to forecast. You want to be able to be intentional and predict. And it's tough in real estate because, I mean, I'm sure a lot of you would agree with me that it's kind of a roller coaster at times, because you find yourself working really hard, prospecting, getting a bunch of business, and then you start servicing that business, and then you have to then you're like, oh crap, I forgot to prospect, so now I got to go back to prospecting, and it's this constant vicious cycle. And so, from a business standpoint, my focus is always, how can we create a scalable platform that can be consistent? And it's tough. It's the hardest thing to do, but with a good platform, with the right technology, with the right visibility, you can manipulate data. You can see or visualize data in a way that allows for you to be able to predict your business, or to be able to have better workflows, processes that allow for you to be more efficient and allow for you to do more business. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm sure all of us would agree that at a certain point, you kind of if in your current platform that you're currently operating in, there's probably a certain number of transactions where you're like, okay, I'm over my head. That's too many transactions to manage. And so if you're getting to that point where there's a ceiling, you need to start thinking now about how you can break through that ceiling and what you have to establish now so that you can manage more. Because the reality is none of us should have ceilings. Like, nobody wants a ceiling. We all want a floor, but none of us want a ceiling. And so
Absolutely.
systems help.
Absolutely. So we have I don't know how else to say it, a ton of tools that the agents are given, most of which are free. And what do you see from your position right now? And not everybody's up to speed on all this stuff. What are some of the things that our agents are using or have availability to that is helping their business from your perspective?
That's a great question. Listen, I mean, at its foundational level, training is number one. Training and mentorship and coaching. The reality is the accountability is key. Let's use the good old example of going to the gym. It doesn't really matter what weights I'm using. They could be beat up weights, old weights, as long as they're weights. I'm probably going to get a good exercise. You know, equipment's important, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, the accountability, that consistency of going to the gym over and over and over again consistently is what's going to sculpt or change your body, right? Now, having said that, once you have a coach that can hold you accountable, a mentor that can hold you accountable, somebody that can hold you accountable, now the equipment becomes important, because you're going to start to really elevate your game. You're going to get more into it. You're going to start bringing some business in, and a CRM is at the base, at the baseline of that. Like, in order to define your business, you need to have all of your prospects, all of your database in one place, and you need to have a very efficient way of communicating with them. And so for anybody on this call that doesn't have a CRM, we offer a CRM. It's Follow Up Boss. It's the best in the biz. We did a lot of research. They actually have a conference coming up in LA. I think it's in November. They're a great company. So much fun. They're very innovative. And their entire pitch is, listen, this platform is built to be able to plug into a whole bunch of other tools. they built it as the best CRM possible with this open API capability to where other businesses can plug in. And so, the Follow Up Boss is something that's available to all of our agents. And one of the plugins is Ylopo, which is more of like a marketing tool where you can send out drip campaigns to your interested buyers if they're looking for homes. It gives you a home search site. It gives you visibility into what homes they're looking at. And it also has some AI on the back end that if they look at a home 3 times or 4 times, or let's say they don't go on your home search site for a few months, and then they come back and they look at it, 3 or 4 months later, it'll rope you in. It'll notify you. It'll tell you, hey, this person's looking. It also gives you access to HomeBot, which is a home valuation tool, which is next level. And you get to set up all of your homeowners in your database with a HomeBot, and you set that up on once a month. And I don't know about you guys, but I love home valuation reports. Like I look at mine every single month. Like I get it. I'm like all excited. I'm like, what's going on in the market? Like, what's my home worth? Especially during 2021 and 22, I feel like every month I'd look at mine and it was up like 20, 30,000. I'm like, yes, it's like I'm winning. And so you kind of, it's kind of almost like gamifying the real estate business, where it's like you get this report card on your home. All of those are just touch points that basically, keep that person intrigued, keep that person seeing value in what it is that you're providing. And at the end of the day, when you call them, you have something to talk about. It gives you a reason to reach out. So I would say that technology is like number one.
Okay, great. So this is really good stuff. Look, let's paint the picture. You're a business person. You're a businessman. You look at things. You're very analytical. You look at the numbers. You want a return on the investment. That's where you came from. You came from $1 billion industry. You were, very high in management in that, working that up. How many years? 10 years?
12
years. And you came out of that industry and came into this one. What you bring to our company can't be measured. Okay. Can't be measured. And you come to it just naturally, etc. And then how important is it, do you think, for, as a business person, talking to real estate agents who would like to be business people, but sometimes we're not, on getting their business into these systems, the slow down to speed up concept?
Yep.
Nobody wants to do that. However, some agents that I see on the screen, been in the business 20 years and still don't have past client sphere base that they can manage, whether it's in Follow Up Boss or Excel or anywhere. And you've already proven time and time again how much money we as real estate agents lose because we don't have it in a system like that and are following up.
Yeah. Listen, any business is a game of numbers. Hey, Monica, I see you down there. Any business is a game of numbers. And at the end of the day, if you guys follow Mike Ferry, which I know a lot of you do, if not the majority of you, you guys know that Mike will tell you that you should be getting about 10% of transactions out of your database, meaning that if you have 100 people, you should be getting 10 transactions a year. Managing 100 people is doable. Managing 200 people is doable. Managing 1,000 people, 1,500 people, 2,500, 10,000 people becomes a lot more challenging. And everybody on this call's goal should be to be growing their database daily. But more importantly, don't just look forward. And I know Mike trains a lot on like focus on leads that are going to buy real estate right now. And I struggle with this a lot because I agree with him entirely. Like, yes, you want to be talking to people who are going to buy or sell real estate in the next 30, 60, 90 days. I completely agree. But having said that, I also value having a system that maintains communication and maintains updates and keeps people essentially, on the hook. As I grow my database, I want you guys to think about this. Like if you could create a campaign or some value, or a structure to where you were able to organize 1,000 people to where you knew when to call them and it was a manageable amount, how to email them in bulk, how to text message them efficiently, and you had a system that kept you organized. Gosh, you can manage so much more using technology. It's a fact. And if you can manage 2,000, you guys do the math. How many transactions should you close if you have a database of 2,000?
200.
All right. It would be really hard for you to close 200 transactions if you didn't have systems in place. It would be very hard for you to close 200 transactions in a year if you didn't have a team that you had created good processes with. You wouldn't be able to. I mean, when we go to Mike Ferry and we look at these people sitting in the front row that are doing, 75, 100, 125, 200 deals a year, they're very organized. And I'm sure there's a certain level of chaos underneath that. I'd be naive to think there isn't, but at the end of the day, they are organized.
Absolutely. So when we think about this, we want to make sure that we have the systems built. So have built and are building systems. And I've seen a few mergers recently, and they haven't gone as smoothly and have had their own real chaos and problems. I don't see it in our organization, and I attribute that to you. And that's what kind of prompted this in large part was we've got to get the message across to the agents. They've got to put the horse before the cart. It doesn't work the other way.
Yeah. 100%. And for newer agents that are coming into the business or people that are earlier on in their real estate career, I have talked to a lot of our agents that are, 10, 15 years into this thing, and they have, an Excel spreadsheet. And there's nothing wrong with Excel. I love Excel. I geek out on Excel. Excel is one of my favorite things to use. But it's not, unless you're very sophisticated at using Excel, you're not going to be able to use that as a system at scale.
Right. Got it. Okay, so let's do this. By the way, just curious, what's your superpower?
Oh God, my superpower, huh? That's a good question.
First thing that comes to mind.
I'd like to say it's talking to people, but then again, I'm not as social as I'd like to be. But I like to talk to people. I like to hear about what people are doing. I'm curious. I like to hear. It's fascinating. All the different jobs that are out there and what people do. And I feel like there's a lot of overlap when you look at some of these people that are doing these jobs or in charge of these companies. There's a lot of things that that any industry will use. So that and
Keith, don't analyze it. Give me an answer.
Well, you know me, so there's no option for that not to be the case.
So what was the answer?
I don't think I gave you an answer. Yeah.
All right. We'll figure that out as we move along.
Someday.
Here. Exactly. Okay. Where's business coming from for our agents? You kind of get to see that behind the scenes a little bit.
Yeah.
So as an organization, we're still taking more listings and buyer sides, correct?
Oh, absolutely. Right now, we have closed 428 listing sides and 355 buyer sides so far year to date.
Okay.
We have almost 200 listings as of right now that are on the market. And yeah, absolutely. We always operate at roughly about 55-45% kind of ratio. On good months, it's 60-40. But I would say that the majority of the business that we're getting is probably primarily from two sources. It's database. So sphere of influence. A lot of our agents have very thick networks, very loyal sphere of influence. And then prospecting, cold calling. I mean, when we partnered with you, Neil, and we've been MFO for quite some time now, we train on creating your own leads, going after just sold, just listeds, expireds, FSBOs. That's where you can keep your costs low and your returns high. Lead generation will always have its place, because let's be honest, there's business to get from that. It's definitely become harder over the last 12 to 18 months. With interest rates rising, you have less of those people that are surfing the web that are qualified. And so we've seen a huge exodus from lead generation. A lot of agents completely, zeroing out their spend on lead generation and shifting to more of a cold call focus. So those are probably the two biggest.
Got it. Great. Expireds aren't staying on the market as long, properties aren't staying on the market as long they're selling faster, correct?
Yeah. Days on market, I think it's 2 months in a row have gone down. Actually, I think it's 3 months now that we're in June. And I think that Robert reported during our last monthly connect that for the first month we saw listings going for over listing price, which is all, those are all good KPIs.
Right.
Those are the KPIs that we look at to really indicate how our local or hyper local market's doing.
Okay, good. So right now, based on what we're talking about, what do you think some of us should be working on for the next 2 months from your perspective? Getting what done in terms of the tools we offer, work on this? What would you suggest?
Yeah, I'm simple, guys. Like at the end of the day, right now the market's been heating up. It's been heating up for the last 3 months. We're seeing it. It's moving in the right direction. Everything's pointing towards, a solid recovery. There's a massive disconnect with what the media is telling your clients and what is true. And so educating your clients, being that local subject matter expert is critical. And the only way that you can get that message out is by actually communicating. And so contacts is the name of the game, guys. It's a numbers game. How many people do you got in your database? How many calls are you making? This is a sales position. I mean, from a brokerage perspective, we're going out and we're trying to acquire more brokerages. I'd love it if every single time I called someone, they're like, yep, here you go. But the reality is we're having to talk to, quite a few brokerages before we get one. And so we're operating in a games of number environment as well. And so I would just say right now, as the market's on an incline, take your share. Market share is important. Take your percentage and grow your percentage. And the only way you can do that is by making more calls, improving on your skills, holding yourself accountable and or having someone hold you accountable, and making sure that you have a system that allows for you to support your efforts.
So you hear this all the time from Robert. You hear this all the time from myself, the rest of the coaching team, from Patty. But I wanted you to hear it from somebody that's crunching the numbers, that's working behind the scenes, that keeps looking at different things, sees a trend, et cetera, et cetera. So questions for Keith.
One more thing, actually, just last thing, Neil, I would also throw in here, diversify. I can't tell you how many agents I talk to that say, I only work my sphere of influence. And there are agents that had a lot of success last year or years in the years prior that are having a harder year this year, because let's be honest, over the last 2 years, a lot of people bought, a lot of people sold. And so that sphere that you've established, you probably had a lot of them that bought and sold, refinanced, and they're kind of good for a minute. And so people that were very sphere oriented they find themselves having a slower year. Not all of them. I'm not going to say all of them, but definitely some of them. And making sure that you diversify your lead sources is important. So get out there and start prospecting outside of your database. Start looking for additional streams of business. That's so important. You should always be searching for what works, and then getting rid of what doesn't.
Great. Good advice. Perfect. Okay. Questions for Keith. Questions for Keith. Who wants to go first? Raise your hand or just shout out.
Uh-oh.
Come on, you guys. What are you afraid of?
Question.
He doesn't sign your
No,
check.
I have a question, Neil. So he was talking about to get a consistent business, you got to have 1, the system, 2, the training, 3 would be mentorship, and 4, coaching. So explain to me more about mentorship.
Yeah, mentorship. Listen, I would say that the mentorship side of the business, at least within our brokerage, it's more geared towards newer agents that like they've gotten their license, but now it's time to actually like feel and do, and you kind of need someone to show you. Most of us are visual learners, and the reality is until you do it, sometimes it's hard to understand it. And all of you guys can relate that real estate has a lot of moving parts. It may, from a high level, it may be a relatively simple business, but there's a lot of contracts, lingo, there's a lot to learn. And what I would say for someone like you, Tess, is while coaching is intended to continuously create that accountability to make sure that you're looking at your business the right way, mentorship would be someone who you aspire to kind of like reach. Like it's someone who you kind of, you're like, hey, they're doing something that I'm not doing at a high level. And so I want to ask them questions. I want to surround myself with them. And I want to take bits and pieces of what they're doing and implement it into my business.
That's exactly what I was leading to. I mean, being in the business for a long time, obviously you have that already. You've acquired it. But sometimes, I don't know, I could talk for myself. I want more. When you need mentorship, I want to know more about that, as far as that, because I think to excel, obviously, we're in the business and would like to do as much as we can while we're able to, that's great.
100%.
Right.
And I think, Tess, you do a good job about this. When you meet people at Mike Ferry events, within the brokerage, visiting other offices, ask them questions and identify those people. It's okay to do this. Okay. I'm not going to judge you. If you talk with someone, you're like, okay, based on that conversation, I don't think I'm going to get a lot of value out of this. It's okay to want to surround yourself with people who are doing better than you. Like it's important to do that. Now, I think there's also value in being that mentor to someone, because I think that iron sharpens iron. And so I think it kind of works both ways to where you can provide some mentorship, but you're always seeking it. You should always be seeking it.
Got it. Thank you.
That's a great question, Tess. Thanks. Great answer, Keith. Appreciate it. Other questions for Keith?
Question. So, brother. Oh, sorry. So Keith, you're talking about all these different systems we're implementing, and we obviously know somebody like you really gets excited about your system, and your dad loves talking about systems.
Oh, that's a favorite thing to talk about.
So, for the rest of the group, it could seem overwhelming, all these different systems, right, that we have in place, or not even just we have in place, just the industry has in place. And so when it gets overwhelming, most people just shut down and don't do any of the systems. So what would be your advice to those people that it just seems overwhelming, all the different systems that are out there? Yeah. He's either saying something really good or he's cursing because he's moving.
Keith.
Oh, sorry. My apologies. I don't know how that happened. So number one, and that was really funny, by the way. Number one, is you have to know why you're using the system. Okay. There's no point in using a system that doesn't make sense. Okay. Don't just use a system to use a system. Like, you have to know why, and it has to add value. Okay. That's number one. So you have to know the why. The purpose of systems that make sense for your business is to make it easier to understand your business. Okay. You guys, let's just round it up. Let's say we have 700 agents. Okay. We have 16 offices. We have a ton of bills, expenses. We have, commission checks coming in, commission checks going out. We have 52 employees. We have a lending business, an escrow business, a property management business. You could imagine how overwhelming that would be if you didn't have some level of structure. For you guys, you have hundreds of people in your database that you need to communicate with, right? You have different lead funnels coming in. And the reality is mine may sound like it's more complicated, but the reality is you're having to make more you're having to manage more individuals than I am. If you have to talk to 200 people, 300 people, I only have to talk to 52. Okay. You have a harder job to balance those conversations and understanding where they are in the journey. And so I guess what I would say is this: whatever systems you decide to use, you want to A, fully understand why you're using them, and then B, they have to make it easier to see your business. For me, being able to click a button and I can tell you exactly across 700 agents and now 1,000 transactions year to date. I want to know what the average price of our listings are. I want to know how many days on market our listings are. I want to know that for buy side. I want to know what the average commission check looks like for an agent. Right now it's 13,000. I want to know what the average percentage of commission agents are asking for. Ours right now is 2.37. I want to know those things because to me, those are really important KPIs, which means key performance indicators. And I want some of those I want to go up and some of them I want to go down. And once you define what your KPIs are for your business, it becomes really easy to look at 7 KPIs and just say, is it up or is it down? And if it's up, I'm doing something right. And if it's down, assuming that's a bad thing, then I'm doing something wrong and I need to change it. So it becomes a lot easier to manage a big operation or a big database.
Good question, Robert. Thank you. Great answer. Okay, other questions for Keith? Randy, did you have your hand up?
Yes. My question for you is, currently, do we have the list of all the best practices? Maybe all of our top producing agents are kind of using that could, obviously we can review it and adapt to it sooner rather than later. So this way we are not playing like a test of change and kind of learning game and get to that results faster rather than slower.
So here's what I'll say to that. I have met a lot of real estate agents in the last 2 years. And there are some real estate agents that operate their entire business out of their cell phone, and they are doing 45 deals a year. There are some of them that are operating off of an Excel spreadsheet, and they're doing 50 deals a year. Some of them have a Word document, which you can't manipulate. Like that is a very challenging document to manage a business off of. And they are doing 60 transactions a year. Okay. At the end of the day, your willingness to work really, 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 really hard, and your consistency, your determination, your willingness to learn, your willingness to listen, is always going to trump any system that you use. Like, you're not going to be able to build a real estate empire if you're not willing to put in the work. And so I would say that that's where it starts. And the top producing agents that we have within our business, which I see a few of them on this call, they work hard. We have a successful business because we work hard. You got to be willing to work hard. So I would say, yeah, I mean, I could give you a list of best practices, but the reality is that some of the most successful agents aren't even using them. And so it really comes down to your ability to feel comfortable in talking to people, building relationships, calling them, asking for referrals, asking when they're going to buy or sell, providing value, educating yourself. There's a lot that goes into it, but at the end of the day, it really comes down to you working hard and talking to people. Like, I hate to make it that simple, but sales in general, that's really what it comes down to. The systems are great and they're going to help you talk to more people consistently, and it's probably going to yield 5-10% more volume, but you won't even have any volume if you don't do the work.
Got it. Thanks, Vianney. Good answer, Keith. Appreciate it.
Hey,
Okay.
Keith, I got a question.
Mhm. Uh-oh.
Okay, we can allow Randy to ask a question.
Keith, we get a lot of slack because we're growing so fast and what we're doing. And we've had a lot of agents ask us what is in it for them and what we're doing to grow our company and what is in it for them. I'd like you to explain what is in it for them as me and you work till 9-10 o'clock at night doing what we do and putting this stuff together. What do they get out of what we're doing?
Well, for starts, Follow Up Boss isn't free. Ylopo is not free. There are a lot of things that we want to pay for because we know it makes you better. And by growing our business, we're able to provide best-in-class tools, best-in-class support. You guys could imagine that having 15 offices isn't cheap. Having 52 employees, there's got to be money to pay for all of that. And the reality is, the bigger we get, the more support, the more facilities, the more tools, and the better all of us can become. I'll be honest, like, at the end of the day, I think it comes down to this. I always liked working for companies that were growing. I've never worked for a company that wasn't growing, to be quite honest. Even when I was working at the winery, it was one of the most up and coming wineries in the Temecula Valley area. I worked for a company that went from 30 properties to 90 properties. I flew on private jets with the owner. It's fun. It's exciting. It's great to be a part of a company that's getting bigger and has ambition. Because the reality is those individuals that are growing, they have a similar mindset to what your mindset should be. And so the mentorship, you can actually lean on us as mentors. I mean, I try to be good about this and answer my phone whenever someone calls or text them back or call them back. And the reality is, you have people that are eager, hungry, looking to grow. And to me, that's something you want to be a part of.
Good. Thanks. Good question, Randy. Good stuff, Keith. What else we have? Other questions out there for Keith Thompson? Anyone else pop up?
Melinda, I didn't know you were still. I didn't know you were still out in the tropical vacation. I thought you came back already.
I'm channeling that vibe.
Channeling the vibe.
Yes, I would like to be on the beach in Fiji again, but
I hear you. I hear you.
I would like the sun to just come out. That would be helpful.
I know, that would be a start, wouldn't it?
Yes.
Be careful what you wish for.
Well, that's true, but I don't mind the heat, so I'm good with it.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I would also say, and to answer your question a little bit, Randy, it's kind of what I was trying to do, after 50 years of doing this pretty much solo with a team that I built around me that did really great job. There's more people, more management, more depth. I mean, you don't hire Keith Thompson for, $200 an hour. You just don't. It's not you don't get that quality of person and be able to go to. It's way different. But I would say from our perspective, I talked about this earlier. If you're not taking advantage of what we do in the mortgage side of this business, you're missing a giant opportunity. And all you got to do is go get a mortgage license, whatever they call those, MLS, MRF.
NMLS, yeah.
Yeah, you just got to do that. You know,
Well, and I think that's a good point to my dad's question earlier, guys. Like at the end of the day, it's not just like we're not just trying to grow a real estate business. You have you have individuals who are involved on the lending side, the property management side. These are all things that, you know, a lot of real estate agents, you know, find themselves interacting with. And so there's a lot of opportunity to learn about all of those things, and to get involved in all of those things. And I'll be honest, we just kind of started this process of going nationally. We have been for the last couple of months, and we're as competitive as anybody out there. I mean, we are going to get real lean and mean to get your business, and you're not going to get better service on the lending side. And let's be honest, if you get your NMLS license, being able to refer it out is a win too, because it's a revenue stream that you may not have.
Absolutely. And the other piece to it, I mean, the obvious thing for me that I looked at is that in Southern California right now, you have 13 or 14 different offices, conference rooms to use, or internet systems to use, all conveniently located. You can do that. Set it up in advance. Don't drive up on a Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock and expect it to be, you know, open, because it may or may not be. But do that. That's a tool for you. The referral side of this business, and I think a lot of agents are really missing a giant opportunity here, and that is that agents like working with our own, you know, especially if they're trained similarly and they have the same similar work ethic, et cetera, work referrals amongst each other. But when you talk about Keith, when you and Randy talk about opening up a mortgage connection in Tennessee or Virginia or Florida, I think sometimes agents don't really see what's that worth, what's that important to me, how does that help me? Well, let me tell you something. I just had a referral sent out today for a guy that's moving. I think I talked to Carol Perez about this. She's got a client going to Tennessee. We have a mortgage relationship in Tennessee. She can try to refer an agent, but maybe she didn't get that opportunity. But you can still refer the mortgage to somebody in Tennessee, or somebody local here that could actually do the deal and pick up a real, live, regular, no questions asked. It's not a RESPA violation loan referral in Tennessee. So you could pick up 2 referrals by your client going to Tennessee, the mortgage and the real estate. What's that in it for you? Wendy De Leon, as I shared earlier today, has made $12,000 so far this year in her pocket. She did 9 buyer sides and got 9 referral checks.
Wow, that's great.
Why not you?
Yep, I agree.
Why not you? So any other questions for Keith?
You know, I think it's important that you know, we are a Mike Carey organization, and just like our agents are supposed to be prospecting, me, Keith, and Neil have been prospecting for companies to acquire. And the same reason is the market came down just like it did for you. Mike told us we have to do 2 to 3 times more calls a day. We have to build our company 2 to 3 times bigger so we can support what we have today.
Yeah.
I had a question.
Sure, go ahead.
Is there a possibility of opening real estate offices in other states with you guys?
No, any other
Look
question?
at you. Look at you. I would say, yeah, I like that, Neil. I would say this, lending, we can scale nationally because we keep it centralized. Real estate is a hyper local business. You have to have people in that state, and we've seen other brokerages that have gone multi-state, and they more than not shoot themselves in the foot because there's different laws, different rules, different requirements, and you know, just the proximity becomes an issue where you can't see that office and those people as much. I know Zoom is good, but let's be honest, like you guys would have to, I mean, I'm here in Chino Hills right now with you. I'm going to come and say hi to you in a minute. It's always good to have that in-person
Yeah, you
stuff.
better run, Kamal.
I'm coming. But so I would say that right now I never swear off anything, but I think my dad, myself, and the rest of our group is pretty set on right now. California, we feel that if we conquer California, which is our goal, that in California we can be the #1 Century 21 in the entire United States, simply based on our consolidation of California. That's our new campaign: consolidation of California.
Awesome.
And
I had a
and-
question.
Go ahead, Rhonda.
Have you guys ever explored the auction part of the market, where as just not for distressed properties, but I've seen a couple of companies pop up, and I know some from before that are doing online auctions, and they're finding that their clients are loving it, but I don't know what, it's just what hearsay. I'm just curious, have you
Sure,
explored
sure.
it, and what's your opinion?
So I don't know about what's going on right now. 5 years ago, I owned an auction company, exactly what you're talking about. It's more volatile than this business because every second that changes, that doesn't mean we won't do something, but it means that we have some experience in that, and it isn't all bright and shiny as one might think. So we wanna put our resources, I'm speaking for Randy and Keith, but I think they would say the same thing. We want to put our resources in the areas that can help you guys get the most bang for your bucks. Okay,
Right.
for our bucks, for your bucks. And yes, there are a few deals that can be gotten by the auction, but when you have properties that are selling over list price now,
Mhm.
there's no need for an auction company.
Right. That's
Okay?
true.
And that keeps happening. It keeps cycling in and out. And it keeps, for 3 months, we could have used an auction company, but now it's like, you don't need it. Here's the listing presentation. What do you want? Okay.
We're more long-term focused, Rhonda. Like anything that we're going to invest in or support is going to be more of a long-term endeavor. And I think I do agree with Neil that that's very volatile, and you're orchestrating a team and resources for something that may be hot now but won't be hot in a few months, and so it's not something long term that we would probably focus on.
Right. Okay. Just
Good.
No,
curious.
No, thanks,
question.
Rhonda. Thanks for the thought. Keep them
Yeah.
coming. Keep them
Thank you.
coming. Go ahead. Who was next? Okay. Let us unmute yourselves. Let's give Keith a big hand. Woo!
Thank you.
All right.
Thank
you.
Great
Thank
stuff.
you.
Way to go, boss.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very, very good, Keith. Excellent.
Thank you,
work.
Keith.
Excellent work. And if you need Keith, his email address is in there. Email him. He likes talking about this stuff. Want to talk geeky stuff? He's your guy. Excel spreadsheets? He's your guy.
Awesome.
All right, good job. We have, so let's do this. Let's take a couple minutes and what'd you guys learn today? We ask this question all the time, but what did you learn? Let's from Keith's talk, what'd you learn? Who wants to go first?
I can go first.
Go ahead.
It's surrounding yourself with more successful people than you. It's very important.
Huge, absolutely huge. Good point. What else? What else did we learn today? Somebody wrote in the chat box.
We
that
learned more about Keith today. That was very exciting.
Yeah, that's right. We learned, somebody put in the chat box, why is Keith so sexy?
Aaron Lanning, just making me blush.
Good job. All right, what else did we learn today?
Utilize the company's tools. They're there to help us.
100%. Absolutely. If you're not using this stuff, you don't have to use it all. No one, except maybe Hunter, this is everything.
And
right.
I liked what you said about, well, Randy was talking about how some people were just worried, like we're growing too fast, we're this. And I think
Thank
that
you.
that's awesome that we're growing, because the bigger your company, you know, I feel like people go, oh yeah, oh yeah, we know them. They're here, they're everywhere. They must be very successful. And I think that says a lot.
And that's going to help you get another listing or two every year. It's not going to help in every case, but if we can help you get another listing or two a year, and you multiply that times 700 people, you end up with another 1,500 listings, and everybody wins because of that.
Right.
Let me share something with you. I'm on the phones all the time looking for opportunities for us to grow. And there's a lot of companies that are on the edge or actually over the edge right now. This is where we and you want to be during this war, okay? You want to be in our bunkers. You want to be in our foxholes. You want to have the coverage that we have. You want to have the Iron Dome, so if something comes into us that we can push it off. You don't want to be out there by yourself right now. You really don't, okay? All right, what else did we learn today?
I like
Monica?
Diversify. You need
Great,
to.
absolutely. Good job. What else did we learn?
Neil,
of it.
Yeah, go ahead, Nigel.
Nigel.
there was two things. Number one, always be a part of something that's growing and getting bigger. And number two is always look for good mentors, which Keith was like nailed it on this. Always look for good mentors, but at the same time, be a good mentor.
That's great.
That was a good point.
Absolutely.
I like that.
Absolutely. Yeah, Tess, go ahead.
I like what he said about defining your CRM and have a very efficient communication with your CRM. I think that's huge.
Well, you do a really good job with that, but you probably could clean it up a little bit more.
Yeah, that's really good. I know with my coach right now, he wants me to talk to my past client 20 a day.
Perfect.
Yeah, so.
Perfect. I love it. All right. What else did we learn today?
I think the biggest thing I take away from it is Keith's right, the diversification of our agents and the diversification of our company. Without the diversification of our company, we wouldn't be where we are today. Without the lending, without the escrows, without the real estate, without the property management, and without the staff, we have the best staff in the country by far. And we do have the best systems in the country by far. That was proven yesterday when Century 21 came in and looked at Keith's systems, and they go, "We'd like that for corporate." And that's how Keith, you've done a great job. I appreciate it.
All right. Really, really good stuff. Okay. Anyone else? All right. Let's do this. Unmute yourselves again. Unmute yourselves again. Big giant hand. Keith. All right, baby.
Good job, Keith.
Keith, wasn't that bad? Was it?
Keith. Good job. Yeah.
Good.
Keith, it wasn't that bad, was it?
No,
Keith is the boss.
it is always a pleasure talking to you and getting to see all these faces. So I look forward to seeing y'all out and about. You guys do me a favor. Put your head down right now, because right now there's a lot of freaking business to be had. Right now, things are moving in the right direction. We should all be really, really excited. You guys should be doubling down on all of your efforts. So let's make it a strong 2023. Let's finish off with a bang, okay?
All right, good job. Thank you again.
Thank you, Keith.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Keith.
Cool. Good.
Great job. Keith.
Okay, let's see. Robert, who's up next? Jesse, Robert, Ashley.
I got it. I'm going to stop recording really quick.
Oh,